I was walking near the seashore and noticed these rocks that seemed really interesting, and they inspired me to start drawing. Little did I know that this was going to be a start for my 7-day challenge Plein air art. It was really windy, so I had to put down washi tape on my paper so it wouldn't accidentally fly away, which in the end turned out to be a great idea because I really liked the way the paintings looked with the white areas on the top and bottom. Starting off with the base color. I'm using the most prevalent color, which in this case is a light shade of brown. Obviously because of the rocks, but you can even see the rocks underneath the water. It's way better to start with a somewhat colored paper than a plain paper. I'm adding a bit of blue on top of for the sea. Now I'm starting to add a bit of shape, drawing the outlines of all the rocks and adding shadows. Also, I'm adding the waves in the background. This phase is still just adding shapes, figuring out the composition, colors, and all in all, creating blobs and lines. This brush was, by the way, absolutely perfect for this drawing. Here's a quick pro tip. Think outside the box. You wouldn't think rocks are just brown or gray, but what if you added a bit of a maroonish color? I realized that I didn't really have any grays in my palette, but in the end, that was a good thing because I really liked the way these maroon brown rocks turned out. For this challenge, I drew a lot of waves and water. At the start, this piece, I really wanted to draw every single detail and all the reflections and all the lights that it creates and the colors, but I quickly realized that it's just not worth it. I already ran into trouble with my inspiration. I didn't know what to draw for day 2. I found for day 1 my inspiration very easily, very quickly, and I was very motivated. But for day 2, I ended up just choosing a random greenery and the sea, random place. So, number 1, coloring the background. Number 2, laying the base color. And then waiting for it to dry, the most annoying part. Then, number 3, adding more colors, making the shapes more clear and sharper. This is essentially how I do watercolors. I think that this is the best way. For some other mediums, it's a bit different, but for watercolors, I think that doing base and then going into more and more details is the best way to do so. Just don't do too much. This painting was really interesting to me because I had greenery at the back, but also at the front of this piece. How am I going to make the background greenery look as though it really is far away? Obviously, both forests have a lot of shades of green, but they can't be the same color. I looked up at my view. The distant forest seemed a lot less saturated compared to the one that was closer to me. So I decided to add a bit of that reddish color that I used in my first piece. Now, I'm not really sure if I did a good job when it comes to the situation and the background. It's complicated because when we look at it, we see green in both cases. But we know that one is more green and the other one is a bit more faded and grayish. Another thing that I noticed, which I found really interesting while I was drawing the sky and the sea. While the sky and the sea are both blue, they aren't similar or the same shade of blue. I can almost, without any mixing, use a quote-unquote basic blue for the sky, while for the sea I use all kinds of colors. Depends on what I'm looking. But I use that same basic blue, dark blue, aqua, and even a little bit of green. I didn't really want to paint that day, and I don't know if it's visible. I personally see it, so let me know if you see it as well. But it turned out pretty okay. Now, if you're enjoying this video so far, I would kindly ask you to give it a like and subscribe. Also, check me out on Instagram, and we can now move to day 3. On day 3, I decided to paint indoors, and this was the only time. So, I wanted for this painting to be something completely different, but in the end, it turned out to be a lot more interesting, maybe? We'll see. My original vision was to draw one tree at the front, random trees in the background, and a ray of light that's coming or piercing through behind the big tree. I'm not sure how I would have done this, and I'm not even sure how to explain it. But that is the reason why I started with yellow, because I wanted to capture that ray of light. The most annoying thing about watercolors, as I mentioned, is the fact that you have to wait for it to dry, and I was very impatient. So the brown would it would spill and go into places I didn't want them to go. But don't worry, I fixed it all later. One pro tip specifically about watercolors: don't worry about making mistakes. You can always erase it and change it later, even when the painting is completely dry. I guess I wasn't really in the mood to draw on day 2 and 3, but I really liked the way day 3 came out. One mistake that I made with this painting that I will keep in mind for other times is that I didn't put enough time and work into properly drawing the background. I added the main/biggest tree way too soon. So I had to add details in the background, but this tree was in the way and kind of bothering me. What I would do if I painted this scene again is to add more shape to the background trees before adding the front tree. Or just simply sketch it out. If I knew where the front tree was based on the pencil sketch, it wouldn't have bothered me as much. I really should have done that, and you're going to see that on day 4 I finally started to sketch, like make pencil sketches of what I'm going to do, because I cannot do this way, or at least not for all types of paintings. And now the best part of this painting was adding all the little details on the front tree. And I think that this really leveled up this painting, and it is so satisfying. I purposefully made some part of the tree more clear, but while others aren't as detailed, which in my opinion really adds to the realism of this piece, but at the same time it makes it more stylized. So it depends on how you look at it. So anyways, this is all for today's video. We learned a lot. This was like kind of a tutorial, but also going through learning new things, figuring out mistakes, and just learning about what it's like to paint in nature. For the rest of the days, I will continue to draw nature, but I will draw the great cormorant. This is like a really cool bird that I saw on the beach, and if you want to see me draw it, you should definitely subscribe so you don't miss it. And again, thank you for watching. Check me out on my socials, and bye.